All right. Hi, everyone. For today, I will present. So I joined UF last July, and I will present some of the work from my lab during the past year. So one big project in my lab is prostate cancer diagnosis on this new imaging modality called micro-ultrasound. I joined UF as an assistant professor of quantitative health, and I also serve as the assistant director for AI imaging research. So the focus of my research will be AI be applied to medical imaging for disease diagnosis, prognosis, and treatment planning. Here's the outline of today's talk. It's gonna be roughly 45 minutes. So first I will briefly describe what is image segmentation and especially registration many of you may not be familiar with. And after that, I will give you a review of the current status of prostate cancer diagnosis. And then I will present findings from 2 journal papers we just get submitted from our lab. So image segmentation is a task. You give an image input, you want to partition an image into multiple segments, where each segment corresponding to a different class. Here, as an example, you can classify each point in this image as a type of person, bicycle, or the background. So image segmentation is very important. It's a fundamental task in medical imaging. For example, you can use image segmentation to segment a region of interest for further analysis. Say, if I want to calculate the volume of a certain organ by your image registration, yes, you get the volume of your organ, and also you get the shape. For example, I give an example of 3D segmentation. I have a three-dimensional CT image of the abdomen, and we developed a model that can do the 3D segmentation of the aorta and all those 13 different other aortic branches. So by doing so, we obtain some information about the shape. For example, our surgeons are very interested in learning for each branch what is the maximum diameter of this branch. Another key factor they use for the treatment planning is what the volume for each branch. So by doing image segmentation, you got those informations that can be used for further treatment planning. Other applications of image segmentation, it can be actually used to assist other tasks. For example, image registration, which I will discuss later. And other applications, as I mentioned, you can use image segmentation to do a ROI, region-based analysis. Yeah, it's a fundamental task. And another fundamental task in medical imaging is called image registration. So the goal of image registration is to find point-to-point correspondences between 2 images. Here I'll give you a simple example that the tip of your ear will correspond to the ear, your nose will correspond to the nose. So it's basically establish a dense point correspondence map that for each point in your image, you want to find the corresponding point in another image. So image registration is super important. It has many applications. For example, you can use image registration to bring different imaging modalities into the same coordinate system for voxel-wise or pixel-wise comparison. You can use image registration to keep track of the motion of your organ. Say, here I'm giving an example of image registration of 4-dimensional CT images, which means you take a CT image at different time points. By image registration, I can align those sequence time series of CT images into the same coordinate system, and then I can obtain a deformation of the lung with respect to time, so I can keep track of the motion of the lung, so which can be applied and it can be used for treatment planning. Say, here I'm showing a conventional treatment planning, dose distribution. So those outlines correspond to different levels of dose. The pink one is lower dose, but the yellow one corresponds to the highest dose. This is where the tumor is. So conventionally, we don't use this kind of information for treatment planning. What it does is just want to give higher dose to the cancer and try to minimize dose to the other lung and the critical organs like the heart. By doing image registration, we can actually obtain the motion of the lung, so that we try to minimize the radiation dose to regions with the higher motion, and without those regions are healthy, more healthy than other regions that has lower of motion. So by doing so, actually you can minimize irradiating those healthier tissues, so that therefore you can minimize the damage to the lung. So this is another one more application of image registration. So for our prostate segmentation task, image registration will serve as a different purpose, which I will explain later. So as I mentioned, prostate cancer is kind of one of the main project in my lab. So let me briefly go through, give you some background about prostate cancer diagnosis and yeah, for prostate cancer is the most common cancer for American men. And in this year, it's expected to have about 288,000 new cases. And it is also the second leading cause of cancer death, leading to about like 43,000 deaths in this year. The diagnosis of prostate cancer starts with elevated prostate antigen levels, PSA levels. If you have a high PSA level, your doctor may refer you to a more accurate diagnostic approach. The most accurate diagnostic method at this moment is imaging-based diagnosis. How it works, there are two types of diagnostic methods. Conventionally, you may have biopsies, what we call systematic biopsies. How it works is that the clinician takes several biopsy cores from your prostate. Systematically means it's gonna be like even you divide your prostate into 12 different regions, and you take one biopsy at one region with the guidance by this real-time transrectal ultrasound image. So this traditional image. So we have to taking images at those 12 to 14 different locations, because this conventional ultrasound has no way to distinguish between cancer and non-cancer regions. So you will not be able to tell if this is cancer or not from this conventional ultrasound image. So this approach is applied about 100 million times every year in the United States to diagnose cancer. As you can see, because we don't know where the cancer is, we just randomly select systematically select 12 to 14 different biopsy cores, which may miss some of the cancers, not the cancer regions, because this sampling approach only sample about 1% of the regions in prostate. And therefore, this approach can miss about 42% of the clinically significant cancers. So a better way to diagnose cancer is to have an imaging, right, to tell you where exactly those cancers are. So this is called MRI, ultrasound fusion guided biopsy. So what we do is that before we do the biopsy, we take a MR scanning of the prostate of the patient, and after that we ask our urologist, our expert urologist, to outline regions and they found suspicious for cancer lesions. Outline those lesions, and after that, then we need to map those lesions into the real time, and then we have the second session. So this is one session, right? You ask the patient to come in and have an MR scan. Several weeks later, after we have those outlines from MRI, and then what we do, and we can only do the ultrasound biopsy guided by ultrasound, but at this time you can do the fusion of your real-time ultrasound with MRI so that you can map those suspicious lesion locations onto ultrasound, and our surgeon will use those information to target locations that's suspicious for lesions. So as you can see, this approach will make your biopsy more accurate because you are targeting regions that are more likely to have cancer. But this approach, although it's more accurate than just doing a transrectal ultrasound guided biopsy, it's still underutilized because for several reasons. First, MR scanning is really expensive compared to ultrasound. And second, you need you need to purchase another device to do the fusion of MRI and ultrasound, because MRI is not real-time imaging. So you have to map the cancer outlined by radiologists into the conventional ultrasound for this fusion-guided biopsy. Yeah, 2 reasons why it's not widely used. And in our approach, we propose to use a novel ultrasound technology called micro-ultrasound for prostate cancer diagnosis. For like the following like advantages of this new technology. First, this technology provides that operates at a higher frequency. So it's like 29 hertz. It's about like 3 to 4 times more higher frequency than the conventional ultrasound, and therefore it provides 3 to 4 times higher resolution. And therefore, this technology can be used to have some real-time imaging of not just the prostate, but the prostate cancer. You can visualize prostate cancer on this high-resolution micro-ultrasound. And the previous studies have shown that this new technology can provide comparable or even slightly higher diagnostic accuracy compared to MRI. At a much lower cost, it's about like a 1/10 of that cost of MRI. So for MRI prostate cancer, as far as I know, it's about $2,500. But for our ultrasound, one scan is just $250. It's like 1/10 of that cost of MRI. So this table gives you a summary of comparison of the conventional like a transrectal ultrasound, MRI, and the micro-ultrasound through different imaging modalities. So as we know, the conventional ultrasound has a low sensitivity. That's because there's no way to distinguish cancer from normal tissues on this transrectal ultrasound. MRI and the micro-ultrasound are both very sensitive, has a much higher cancer detection rate compared to conventional ultrasound. But the cost of conventional ultrasound and the micro-ultrasound are low, but MRI has a really high cost. Another disadvantage of MRI, as we discussed, is that MRI does not provide real-time imaging. So you have to have 2 sessions. The first session, you do MRI scanning. A few weeks later, for the second session, you need to align MRI with your real-time ultrasound image. And therefore, you could have some image fusion errors. Actually, this type of alignment, fusion of MRI and ultrasound, you had to purchase a new machine to do that. And but it's still a challenging task. There are a lot of errors during the fusion. And this fusion error causes about 50% of the diagnostic error in MRI ultrasound guided biopsy. And you don't have such a concern for micro-ultrasound guided biopsy, because you can do the real-time imaging of the cancer. There's no fusion involved. Another advantage, maybe a disadvantage for micro-ultrasound, is that we only have a single manufacturer. It's kind of reduces the variability in the image appearance, in the protocol. So we are aiming to create a standardized protocol across the United States, so that everybody has a single protocol for the imaging to reduce those variations in the appearance of the images, so that we have a more consistent cancer diagnosis on those micro-ultrasound images. But for MRI, ultrasound, conventional ultrasound, you have multiple, vendors, and model trained on one vendor may not be directly applied. Very often, you won't be able to directly apply those models directly to another vendor. Yeah, and for this project, we will first do radiology and histopathology image registration. So let me give you an idea why we want to do that. If we think about the MRI, what we do, we have an MRI scanning of the patient, and after that, we ask our radiologist, to outline regions suspicious for prostate cancer. So this is an example. We have an MRI. We ask our expert radiologist to outline. So this is a radiologist outline of the cancer, but very often the radiologist may underestimate the size of the prostate cancer. Actually, for this patient, the prostate cancer goes to here. This is the corresponding pathology image, which can provide the more accurate, or we call it we use it as a ground truth outline for the extent of cancer. So as you can see, For this lesion, the radiologist successfully detected this lesion, but underestimated the size of the lesion actually. And also there's another lesion here, which is missed by the radiologist. So the conclusion is that, if we train our models only using radiologist lesions, it's not sufficient, because first they may underestimate the lesions, and also very likely they will miss some of those lesions. And that which is also true for like a micro-ultrasound reading. Here I'm showing the ground truth cancer mapped from the histopathology image of this patient. And the green outline is the outline from our urologist. So the difference another difference I forgot to mention between MRI and micro-ultrasound is that MRI relies on the reading from radiologists. But for micro-ultrasound, now we add one more task for the urologist. So the urologist will be the person to control the whole procedure. So urologists take full control over everything, including data acquisition plus image reading. So we don't ask the radiologist to read the micro-ultrasound images anymore. For this example, so this outline is made by our expert urologist who has about 4 years of experience of this micro-ultrasound, which doesn't sound like too long, but this technology was just approved in 2017, I believe. Yeah. As you can see, same thing for urologist. It underestimates the extent of cancer. The urologist thought this is a cancer, but those regions are cancers confirmed by the pseudo-hormone histopathology image. So to resolve this issue, so what we do is we have a preoperative, I mean, for patient who has a surgical removal of the prostate, pre-surgical MRI or micro-ultrasound image. And then you have a corresponding histopathology image, pseudo-hormone or hormone histopathology image from this surgically removed prostate. What do? You do image registration, which aligns two images into the same coordinate system. So by doing so, as you can see, we can map the cancer outlines from the pathology images into the radiology images, either like MRI or histopathology images. So if you do this for multiple patients, you can use those labels to train your deep learning models for automated detection of prostate cancer on your MRI or micro-ultrasound. And for us, we're interested in doing registration of micro-ultrasound and histopathology images. And this is actually the first pipeline developed in the literature to do such a registration. So this figure gives you an overview of our approach. So at UF, we don't have whole mount histopathology images because the prostate sections actually is very often is larger than our glass slide. So what we do is we cut a prostate section into several small pieces, and we mount each small piece into a separate slide, and we do the H&E staining. This is the resulting resulting several fragments for each each prostate section. So the first task is you need to reconstruct those individual sections into a pseudo whole mount histopathology image. That's the first step. And another input is that when we acquire micro-ultrasound images, for MRI, micro-ultrasound image is different from MRI. So for MRI, it's acquired in the transverse plane or the axial plane, from the apex to the base of the prostate in the axial view. But micro-ultrasound is acquired in the what we call pseudo-sagittal views. What we do, we first have the probe detect the sagittal plane, where you can see the urethra and the ejaculatory duct, the sagittal plane. What you do next is just rotate your probe from the left to the right side of your body, so that the acquisition planes of micro-ultrasound are in those pseudo sagittal plane, or we call those those are oblique planes. So Apparently, the histopathology images are from axial plane, but the micro-ultrasound images are from a different plane. So to align those two type of data set is quite challenging. So what you do first, you need to reconstruct those micro-ultrasound images into a 3D volume so that you can have high resolution axial micro-ultrasound images in the axial view before you do alignment with the histopathology. So you first need to bring those two image modalities into the same orientation. So after that, you have more micro-ultrasound slices than the histopathology slices, because histopathology slices are cut every 3 millimeters. You're resulting about say 8 to 12 histopathology slices, but micro-ultrasound has much higher resolution. So you may have like 50 or 60 micro-ultrasound images in the axial plane. So the next step is you need to find the corresponding, for each histopathology slice, you need to find the corresponding micro-ultrasound axial views, axial slices. And then you do a pairwise alignment or pairwise registration between each histopathology image and the corresponding micro-ultrasound image. So this is a resulting, deformed histopathology image. So as you can see, this histopathology image is aligned with the corresponding micro-ultrasound slice. And additionally, after doing the registration, you can map the ground truth cancer extent from histopathology onto micro-ultrasound for the analysis. So for the dataset, since this kind of like proof of concept, the first paper that do such a registration. So this we have a relatively small dataset. We only have 18 patients who underwent radical prostatectomy. So we remove the prostate surgically. So those patients are from the UF. And for its histopathology data, as I mentioned, the prostate section is too big to fit into one single glass slide. We cut the prostate section into several small fragments and mount each of them into a glass. And therefore, you have multiple histopathology fragments for each section. And the implant resolution of the histopathology image is really high. We have a 0.0081 millimeter implant resolution, so isotropic implant resolution. And the distance between two adjacent histopathology slices are 3 millimeters. For the micro-ultrasound, we acquire a micro-ultrasound in the pseudo-sagittal plane with a fixed size of 1372 by 962 with the fixed implant resolution of 0.039 millimeters. So as you can see, this is a really high resolution. That's why you can distinguish cancer and non-cancer tissues from micro-ultrasound. So we do it from left and right. So that's our data set. So the first step is for histopathology fragments, we need to reconstruct them into a pseudo-hormone histopathology image. This is the urethra and this is the cancer. So, and also you need to make sure the left and right, orientation everything are correct. So we use two approaches. One approach is that we use a automated approach, a semi-automated tool to do the reconstruction. And if that looks good, we just, we have the resulting reconstructed histopathology image. If that result doesn't look good, so my student, he will manually, adjust, do some minor adjustment to the prediction, and this is what he got. Yeah, I would say, based on my opinion, so this is a very high quality pseudo-hormonal histopathology image, and we do that for each patient. We do that for each section, and we're resulting a kind of a 3D. It's not exact 3D, but a stack of histopathology images from the apex to the base of the prostate. And also, we need to do reconstruction of the micro-ultrasound images in the axial views. Why we want to do that? Because micro-ultrasound histopathology images are acquired at different orientations. So in order to do the registration, we have to make sure that they are in the same orientation. So histopathology stack reconstructed from apex to base of the prostate, and the micro-ultrasound is from left to right in central view. So what do we do? First, we need to reconstruct the sequence of micro-ultrasound images from those oblique planes, pseudo-sagittal planes, into the axial planes. So here I'm just giving you a figure that shows this imaging process and our reconstruction process. So here is the axial view and each radical line corresponding to the the cross-section imaging of the prostate by our probe. So this line corresponds to, so for each line here, that corresponding to one micro-ultrasound image. So if we want to do the imaging, we will rotate the probe from the left to the right of the prostate. With the imaging acquire about like 10 images per second. And each like radial line corresponding to a two-dimensional micro-ultrasound image. So this is what we acquired. But what we really need, we want to from those like sagittal view micro-ultrasound images, we want to reconstruct. So this is the reconstructed axial micro-ultrasound image. So we do that. So I will skip the details of this. This is not that exciting, but the conclusion is that this is the process is that to reconstruct the axial slice, what you do is you reconstruct the intensity value for each point in this, in this axial plane. So what we do, we first need to identify which 2D micro-ultrasound slice contains this point. So this is done by computing the, the angle of this point in this coordinate system, where we have x and y direction, x direction in the right and left, and the y direction is from the posterior to the anterior. So the tangent of this this theta is equal to equal to x over y. So that's how you do it. You first find the 2D slice that contains that point, and second, you compute the distance from this point to the bottom, right, to the bottom of this 2D slice, which is equal to square root of x squared plus y squared minus the radius of your probe. So you compute the height, and the width is coming from the z direction. So z direction is from the apex to the base. That's how you got exact intensity for every point in this axial view. So yeah, this gives you the algorithm, but the conclusion is that you have input of a sequence of axial slices, and the algorithm will be able to reconstruct high quality micro-ultrasound images in the axial view. So the next step is, once you have those reconstructed histopathology images and micro-ultrasound images, you need to, for each histopathology image, you want to find the corresponding micro-ultrasound image. Actually, we only need to find one pair of those images, because the distance between the reconstructed histopathology images is 3 millimeters. And in our algorithm, we make the distance between two adjacent micro-ultrasound images to be fixed to 1 millimeter. So which means you only need to find one pair of correspondences, and then you get the correspondences for the rest of the histopathology image and micro-ultrasound images. So what we do, we just find the find those features that has the highest similarity between those two images, and then to identify the slice correspondence. Yeah, this step is kind of more like subjective. And we aim to make this process more automated in the future. Once you identify the slice correspondence, it's natural to do the pairwise registration between the micro-ultrasound and the histopathology images. So we choose to use a traditional approach because the reason we didn't do any deep learning based registration is that we only have a small data set. It's kind of not sufficient to train a very good deep learning model. So what we do affine transformation that use those process masks segmentations to guide the registration. So image segmentation can also be used to help to do image registration. So after we do an affine transformation, kind of like globally align the boundary of two two images, and then we do a final deformable registration using the freeform deformations. So we do a resolution scheme so that you can learn from a coarse deformation to a finer deformation at different resolutions. To prevent overfitting, we do about 12 epochs, 12 iterations per resolution. Yeah, for the evaluation, we use 4 different metrics. First one is dice coefficient. So dice coefficient measures the relative overlap between two image segmentations. And Hausdorff distance measures the distance between the boundary of the prostate, between the fixed image and the deformed image. So those two measures how well the boundaries are aligned, and other two metrics, we have urethral deviation. What we do, we measure distance between the urethra on the micro-ultrasound image and the deformed histopathology image. So smaller is better. And also landmark. So we manually select 3 pairs of landmarks between micro-ultrasound, each micro-ultrasound slice and the corresponding histopathology image. So landmark errors, apparently smaller is better. And so those give you an idea how well the interior features of the prostate are aligned by our method. And those two, Dice coefficient and Hausdorff distance. Dice coefficient higher is better. If you have Dice coefficient equals 1, but that means perfect overlap. 0 means no overlap. Hausdorff distance is smaller is better. 0 means perfect aligned. So then so since we have a small data set, we output all those coefficient, those results for each patient. As you can see, we have a Dice coefficient of 0.965, which is a very high Dice coefficient, and with a landmark error of 2.7. So this number is comparable to prior approach designed for MRI and histopathology image registrations, which is much simpler task, I would say, compared to micro-ultrasound and histopathology registration, because MRI and histopathology images are acquired in the same orientation, but micro-ultrasound is not. So this kind of encouraging. So those results, those are quantitative results. So some visual results, those are the moving images before we do the registration. This is the corresponding, corresponding micro-ultrasound images. This the resulting deformed histopathology image. As you can see, they are well aligned. So the urethra corresponding to the urethra, and some of the feature points correspond to this feature point. So this visual results also demonstrate that our method has achieved a very accurate registration between micro-ultrasound and histopathology. So to summarize, we have developed the first approach for registering the in vivo micro-ultrasound images and ex vivo pseudo-hormone histopathology images. And those numbers and the visual results demonstrate that our approach has achieved comparable results compared to prior MRI histopathology registration method. And as a proof of concept study, we demonstrate the feasibility of doing such a registration method. And finally, we will make our dataset publicly available. So it's kind of like we create a unique dataset with aligned histopathology and micro-ultrasound images with the ground truth cancer outlines. So this dataset can be used to train machine learning models for automated cancer detection on micro-ultrasound images. Yeah, this paper has been submitted to the Journal of Digital Imaging, and I want to thank my postdoc for the great work. And next, I want to present another paper from the lab that we developed a deep learning method for automated process segmentation on micro-ultrasound. Some background. Accurate process segmentation is very important for several reasons. One reason is that once you have a segmentation, you have a way to compute the prostate volume, which is an important indicator for the clinicians. And also you can use those segmentations to outline, tell the urologist where the prostate is on the image. That can be used to help to guide the, micro-ultrasound guided biopsy. Another way to use it is that, as I showed before, so we can use those segmentations to guide the registration of micro-ultrasound and histopathology images. Finally, this segmentation can be used to do cancer detection by excluding unnecessary information outside of the prostate, let the model purely focus on prostate regions to find the cancers. However, the segmentation of the prostate on micro-ultrasound images is quite challenging compared to segmentation on MRI for several reasons. First, our urologists, they are more used to reading prostate images in the axial view. They read a lot of MRI, histopathology images, all in the axial view. But now we are forcing them to switch their mind into different view, which is a pseudo-sagittal view. And that's one reason. The second, this some indistinct borders between the bladder, the bladder, the seminal vesicle, and the prostate capsule in the midline, especially. And also another factor that causes challenges is that microultrasound can have some artifact. You have those like shadow artifact and other artifacts like artifact caused by, for example, prostate calcification, something like that. Yeah, and therefore, like at this moment, most of urologists are, they prefer MRI compared to microultrasound because it's quite challenging to segment the prostate on microultrasound images. So the goal of this paper is to address this challenge. So what we do is we have a data set consists of 75 patients. We annotated we use 55 patients for the training and another 20 for the testing. For the annotation, we have to outline the extent of the prostate capsule on microultrasound images. So for the annotation, we have 2 non-expert annotations and 1 expert annotator. So first, we ask our beginner annotator, who is a graduate student, only have 6 months of experience, annotate the prostate on microultrasound first, and then I will review his annotations and refine the process segmentation. And after that, it takes about 2 hours per patient for this process. And then after that, we spend another 2 hours to refine our segmentations. So what we do, we ask our expert annotator to help to review our annotations and provide us with his feedback. And we continue to refine our annotations until it satisfies satisfies his requirement. So basically, what the conclusion is that for the dataset annotation, we have 2 types of annotations. We have expert annotations and non-expert annotations. Yeah, this step basically I already decided. Yeah, so the proposed segmentation approach actually takes the advantage of this unique dataset, consists of expert annotations and non-expert annotations. So the difference between the expert annotation, the final annotation from our expert, and the initial annotation from our students. So the difference tells you or tells the model, right, where exactly are those regions that are hard to segment. If there's for those regions where the student miss it, but the expert find it, those are the regions hard to segment for the models. And we will customize our loss function. So we propose a new loss function to use this information to improve the performance of our model. We call it like annotation guided binary cross-entropy loss. And second, we use a segmentation model that based on the vision transformer, which is called a trans UNet. It uses combined UNet with a transformer. So what we did, like to continue improving the performance of this model, is we add a multi-scale deep supervision so that our model can capture both global and local information at different scales. So those are the 2 innovations in this method. So to take advantage of the expert annotation and the non-expert annotation, this figure gives you an idea how we use it. So those are the regions that, what we define easy regions or mean easy to segment even for a non-expert. But those regions are the, disagreement between the expert and the non-expert. So we consider those regions are regions that's really hard to segment. So for this example, those are the hard to segment regions and those are the easy to segment regions. Most of the regions are easy to segment, but some regions are much harder. So when we design our loss function, what we do, we will assign higher penalty to regions prediction errors in those hard regions. So we assign a lower penalty to regions, easy regions. So by doing so, the model will focus on improving the segmentation on those hard to segment regions during the training. Just a brief review. So the traditional binary cross-entropy loss assigns equal weights to every pixels independent of, no matter without using this anatomy information, equal weight to every pixels. Oh, here's a typo. This is the BCE loss. But for our antigen-guided cross-entropy loss, oh, sorry, I have a typo here. We assign, this is the antigen-guided cross-entropy loss. We assign a different weight to different pixels. If a pixel, is in the easy region, we assign a low weight, say 1. But if this pixel is in the hard to segment region, we assign a much higher weight to the prediction error, forcing the model to focus on improving predictions in those hard to segment regions. As to summarize the innovations, so this is the first deep learning based method for this type of segmentation task. And second, we only require our expert to give feedback on our annotations, without requiring him to do the annotation on his own. This saves tons of time because this process takes about 4 hours. If our clinicians, they are busy, they don't have time to do the annotation. So by only requiring the feedback, we make this process much more efficient for them. And finally, we assign higher penalties to prediction errors in those hard to segment regions compared to those easy to segment regions, defined by the difference between our expert and non-expert annotations, encouraging our model to focus on those, change regions during the training. So we compare our method to several existing methods, UNet, which is a classic segmentation model. And we also compare to the transformer-based UNet, which is the first transformer-based segmentation model. And some other existing methods, for example, dilated, like residual UNet based on dilated convolution and the residual connections. Here are some numbers. So DICE measures the overlap between two segmentations. Higher DICE means better results. As you can see, our model achieves the highest DICE coefficient compared to other methods. So UNet is a significantly lower DICE compared to other methods because it does not have, our explanation for this observation is that UNet has no information about the global correlation between different regions of the image, kind of lack the global vision of the image information. And also we compared our micro-segment to 3 different human annotators. We have one math student, another medical student, and even another clinician to annotate the prostate. As you can see, the DICE coefficient for the clinician is 0.92, which is lower than our deep learning methods. So this also demonstrates that this annotation task is very challenging, quite challenging if you are not an expert. So this clinician is an expert urologist, but has very little experience with the reading micro-ultrasound. Yeah, this also demonstrates the performance of our method. And here are some visual results. So we have 3 patients. Each column corresponds to 1 patient. So the first column corresponds to the first patient. So this patient has a relatively high quality micro-ultrasound image. As you can see, all those 4 models performs fairly well on segmenting prostate on this this patient. But as we have more artifact on the image, say patient 2 and patient 3 has a lot of calcification artifacts. We see that the conventional UNet model just got really confused with those artifacts. It's not robust. It has really crazy, predictions. This is definitely not prostate as a human. And also, but the transformer-based method, TransUNet, performs relatively fine. At least have a consistent transformation. Do not have those isolated predictions. But it's those 2 methods, and also the dilated residual UNet methods, and those 2 have still kind of robust to the artifact, but still have huge misclassification near the boundary of the prostate. Our method is more robust to artifacts, and also have higher overlap between the prediction and the ground truth. The conclusion is that all methods perform relatively well for high quality images, but when you have artifacts, our method is more robust and more accurate. And we also did some ablation study. So remember, we assign low weights for those easy regions and higher weights to those hard to segment regions. But what's the best weights for the hard to segment regions? We do an ablation study. So we at the very beginning =1 means equal weights for hard and easy regions. This is like basically a standard BC loss. But as we increasing giving more weights to hard to segment regions, the performance of our model increases, but reaching to a peak value at 12. If you continue increasing the weights for the hard to segment regions, the performance will drop because the model is paying too much attention, to those hard to segment regions, and therefore its performance in those easy to segment regions may getting a poor. Yeah, so this what our conclusion is that we found that at a appropriate weight of 12 gives you the best results. To conclude, we introduced the first deep learning based segmentation model for prostate segmentation of micro-ultrasound images. And we proposed an annotation guided loss that allows the model to focus on those challenging regions during the training by taking the advantage of both expert and non-expert annotations. And second, and also we applied a multi-scale deep supervision for the transformer-based model, so that our model can learn both global and local context during the training for better prediction. And finally, we will make our dataset publicly available. So we created the first publicly available micro-ultrasound dataset with both expert annotations, which is provided by most dataset. But in addition, we also have those non-expert annotations telling us where are the regions that's hard to segment. Yeah, so I want to thank my PhD student, Hong Xu. So this paper is currently under review in the Journal of Computerized Medical Imaging and Graphics. Thank you for your time.